The kitchen clock struck midnight, its soft ticking punctuating the heavy silence between us. Steam rose from our cups of strong black tea, untouched and growing cold, abandoned in favor of something stronger. My old friend from the police force, Dmitry, sat across from me, his massive frame somehow looking diminished in the harsh fluorescent light. 20 years on the force had etched deep lines around his eyes, but I'd never seen him like this. His hands that could typically steady a weapon without trembling, hands that had subdued countless suspects, now shook as he reached for the vodka bottle. The late autumn wind rattled the kitchen window, carrying with it the last dying leaves of the season. It seemed fitting somehow, this backdrop of decay, given what he was about to tell me. We hadn't seen each other in months, maybe even a year. Such is the life of a dedicated officer. Their family sees them only in stolen moments, brief glimpses between shifts, often already asleep. Friends become distant memories, faces you pass occasionally on the street with a quick nod and promises to catch up soon. But tonight was different. Tonight, he hadn't come for a friendly reunion or to reminisce about old times. The haunted look in his eyes spoke of something else entirely, something that had shattered his professional composure and sent him seeking solace in a friend's kitchen at this ungodly hour. In all my years wearing the badge, he began, his voice rough like gravel, I've seen things that would turn most men's stomachs. Accidents, murders, the worst of what humans can do to each other. But this, he trailed off, pouring another shot with trembling fingers. The vodka sloshed against the rim of the glass, a few drops escaping onto the worn tablecloth. I waited patiently as he gathered his thoughts. 20 years of friendship had taught me when to push and when to let silence do the work. The kitchen's fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across his face, deepening the lines of worry etched there. You remember that old factory district? He finally continued. The one by the railway tracks? Where the Khrushchev-era apartments stand like forgotten sentinels against the sky. I nodded, though I rarely ventured to that part of town. It was the edge of our world, where the city's pulse grew faint and the wilderness began to reclaim its territory. It happened there, he said, downing another shot. Just last week, the call came in during my shift. I was in the duty room, just grabbing some paperwork. Routine stuff, you know? But then I heard it. A mother's voice on the line. The kind of panic that makes your blood run cold. He paused, rubbing his face with his massive hands, as if trying to erase the memory. Her son had been playing in the courtyard. Simple enough, right? Kids play in courtyards all the time. She'd been calling him from the balcony, watching the sun sink behind the factory chimneys. But there was no answer, no sign of him. It was like he vanished into thin air. The veteran officer's voice cracked slightly, and he reached for the bottle again. I noticed his hands had steadied somewhat, as if the act of telling the story was helping him regain his composure. She did everything right, you know. Checked with his friends, called their parents, searched the immediate area. But nothing. It was like the earth had swallowed him whole. We got there quickly. It's not a big town, after all. But that neighborhood, it's different. Isolated. The kind of place where the city feels like it's holding its breath. The apartment blocks loom over you, their windows like hollow eyes watching your every move. Beyond them, just railroad tracks stretching into darkness, and then the woods. God, those woods. He described the scene they found upon arrival. About 30 locals gathered in the courtyard, men clutching flashlights like lifelines, their breath visible in the cold evening air. The search began methodically. Every building entrance, every basement, every nook where a child might hide or become trapped. The mother's hysteria provided a heartbreaking soundtrack to their efforts, her sobs echoing off the concrete walls. We called in the search and rescue team, he continued, his voice growing more professional, as if the familiar routine of police work offered some comfort. The local men joined in, good people, eager to help. We checked everything. Dumpsters, sewage access points, abandoned cars. Nothing. For an hour, we searched, hope diminishing with every passing minute. The dogs finally picked up a scent, leading the search party across the railroad tracks and into the forest. Dmitry stayed behind, handling the necessary paperwork from his patrol car, trying to maintain some semblance of official procedure while the mother's grief threatened to overwhelm them both. I got her sedatives from the pharmacy, he said, shaking his head. But how do you calm a mother whose child has vanished? Her questions, her tears, they were like physical blows. I had to rewrite those reports so many times. My hands were shaking too badly to hold the pen steady. The search continued through the night. The dogs lost the trail several times, only to pick it up again, leading them deeper into the forest. As dawn approached, they discovered a small swamp, a place that seemed to exist outside of time, where the very air felt wrong. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper as he described what they found. The boy's body, mutilated in ways that defied explanation. Nearly severed in two, internal organs floating in the fetid swamp water, limbs twisted and bound with wire, straw stuffed beneath the ribcage like some grotesque attempt at taxidermy. Several of the search volunteers couldn't handle it, he said, his voice hollow. They vomited, some fainted. These were tough men, mind you, construction workers, factory laborers. But this was beyond anything human experience prepares you for. When his phone rang with the news, he knew his hardest task still lay ahead. Standing there in the pre-dawn darkness, watching his breath form clouds in the cold air, he had to find the strength to tell a mother that her worst fears had been realized, and that the reality was even more horrific than she could have imagined. You know what the worst part is? He asked, finally meeting my eyes across the table. In all my years on the force, I've never seen anything like it. Never heard of anything like it. And now I can't help but wonder what else might be out there, in the shadows of our quiet little town. The kitchen clock continued its relentless ticking, counting out the seconds of silence that followed his story. Outside, the wind had died down, leaving an unnatural stillness in its wake. My friend, this bear of a man, this veteran of countless investigations, sat slumped in his chair, looking somehow smaller, as if the weight of his story had physically compressed him. The vodka bottle stood nearly empty between us, a silent witness to the unburdening of a horror that would likely haunt him for the rest of his career. I wanted to offer some words of comfort, some perspective that might ease his burden, but what can you say in the face of such inexplicable tragedy? Sometimes, I supposed, the only thing you can do is listen, bear witness, and help carry the weight of knowing. Another drink? I finally asked, reaching for the bottle. He nodded, pushing his glass forward, and we sat there in the harsh kitchen light, two old friends united in the knowledge that some mysteries are better left unsolved, some questions better left unasked. I finally revealed everything to her, exactly as it had transpired. Her reaction was deeply affecting, something I still struggle to properly convey. What struck me most was how she seemed almost prepared for the news, as if she'd been steeling herself for this outcome all along. There was none of the typical hysteria one might expect, no violent outbursts or self-harm. She simply clutched my jacket tightly and wept quietly. The investigation proceeded as per standard protocol. We opened a case and began searching for the perpetrator of this horrific act. The following day, I visited her residence to clarify some case details. What I discovered was devastating. The front door was unexpectedly unlocked, and upon entering, I found her in the bathtub, having cut her wrists. The apartment's modest furnishings reflected her financial struggles, and it was evident that losing her son had stripped away her will to live. Though we initiated the investigation and searched for the criminal, we found ourselves without any substantial leads. The case remained dormant until a similar incident occurred. Another late-night call to the department. Another child had vanished while playing outdoors, seemingly into thin air. The location was eerily similar to the previous incident. I returned to the scene. encountering another set of shell-shocked parents and many of the same search team members from the previous case. We immediately checked the same marsh area, but this time found nothing. The search continued through the night, the next day, and for a week afterward, all without results. The situation intensified when a third child disappeared, a 12-year-old girl. Unlike the previous evening disappearances, she vanished in broad daylight after leaving a store. Though the timing differed, the area's characteristic emptiness, devoid of witnesses regardless of the hour, made the daytime disappearance equally plausible. Our search efforts were exhaustive. We combed through the forest methodically, but found absolutely nothing, not a single clue. The tracking dogs, which had shown some promise in the first case, became inexplicably ineffective in subsequent searches, appearing almost stupefied even when presented with scent items. The only silver lining was that these parents, unlike in the first case, were spared the immediate knowledge of their child's fate. They continued to hold on to hope. The community's reaction was swift and intense. Rumors spread rapidly throughout the town. People became terrified of venturing out after sunset, adults and children alike. Even daylight hours saw children traveling only under adult supervision, whether to school or other destinations. The situation demanded immediate action, especially with pressure mounting from superiors. 3 missing persons, 1 confirmed deceased. Privately, I suspected all 3 victims had met the same fate, though hope, as they say, dies last. Dmitry lit a cigarette before continuing his account. The investigation had hit a wall. Every lead explored, every possible witness questioned, yet we repeatedly found ourselves at dead ends. Until finally, a breakthrough emerged with the 4th disappearance, another girl, this time from slightly outside the previous target area. 2 weeks after this latest incident, my team discovered something crucial while investigating the scene. This evidence supported my theory about a serial predator operating in the area. During witness interviews, we spoke with the victim's friend, who turned out to be the last person to see her. She revealed that the missing girl had been communicating with someone online who had promised her a new phone. The victims, being around 10 years old or slightly older, understood social media and mobile phones but lacked the maturity to recognize potential dangers. The friend couldn't specify where this meeting was supposed to take place, but it gave us our first real lead. We responded by creating approximately 10 decoy accounts across various platforms, Vkontakte, Odnoklassniki, Instagram, and others, attempting to attract similar offers. Within 2 days, one of our operatives received a message from a suspicious individual initiating contact. The operative responded appropriately, deliberately including mistakes in their writing to maintain the pretense. The online correspondent remained anonymous, focusing instead on discussing their passion for video games. They mentioned having a spare gaming console that they had no use for, presenting themselves as a generous individual looking to give it away. My partner Antoka managed the conversation. Within 30 minutes of messaging, they had arranged a meeting location, near the railroad crossing by the biofactory, in the same general area as before but closer to the wood line. Antoka maintained his cover perfectly, responding as any naive child would, avoiding any questions that might raise suspicion and agreeing readily to everything proposed. As evening approached, I remained at the station with Antoka and 2 other operatives, monitoring the ongoing conversation. While drinking coffee, a message suddenly appeared. "I am grabbing the console and heading out now," followed by a smiling emoji and a photo of an attractive gaming console box. Though I couldn't identify the specific model, being unfamiliar with gaming systems, the image was convincing. Antoka responded that he needed to ask his mother's permission, given the late hour. While he maintained this pretense of seeking parental approval, we quickly mobilized, entering our vehicle with what seemed like a straightforward plan. Arrive swiftly, apprehend the suspect, and transport them to the station for questioning about their identity and the supposed gaming console. In retrospect, our confidence appears remarkably naive. My companion paused here, lighting another cigarette. I noticed goosebumps running across his trembling hands as he fell silent. We proceeded to the location fully equipped, wearing bulletproof vests as a precautionary measure against potential resistance. We parked at a distance and approached on foot, passing along railroad tracks near what appeared to be either an electrical substation or some other railway-related structure. Through the darkness, we spotted a figure holding a box, scanning the surroundings. We approached as quietly as possible from behind the building. When I emerged shouting, "Police! Hands up!" on the ground, the suspect fled with remarkable speed, though still clutching the white box which made him visible in the darkness. We pursued him through the dense vegetation. Despite his significant lead and evident familiarity with the terrain, I drew my service weapon and opened fire. My colleagues did the same. Remarkably, despite 4 officers shooting simultaneously, the suspect appeared to dodge every bullet, maintaining his pace. During the pursuit, we heard a splash and a shout. Antoka had fallen into the same marsh where we previously recovered bodies. I ordered one officer to assist him while another continued the chase with me. We maintained visual contact with the suspect using our flashlights, but suddenly found ourselves confronted by 3 additional figures. One was extraordinarily large, while 2 were thin and unkempt, appearing as if they emerged from a coal mine. The original suspect joined them. They stood approximately 10 meters away, some holding torches and kerosene lamps, armed with various weapons, sickles, axes, and knives. The scene was clearly visible despite the darkness, and I found myself paralyzed with an inexplicable fear. Before I could aim my weapon, I heard my partner fire, followed by a cry from one of these strange inhabitants. They reacted with animal-like fury, disarming my colleague. As I moved to assist him, I experienced an intense pain in my head as a broken stick struck me, sending me to the ground. "Did you lose consciousness?" I inquired. "No," he responded, "but the pain was so severe I couldn't take any action." The fluorescent lights of the precinct had long since burned themselves into my retinas when Dima began recounting that night. The night that would forever alter the trajectory of his life and career in law enforcement. I could see the weight of the memory etched into every line of his face as he spoke, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for his coffee cup. "The human mind," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "has a remarkable capacity for blocking out trauma. But some things burn themselves so deeply into your consciousness that no amount of time can fade them." He paused, gathering himself before continuing with his account of that fateful evening. I watched helplessly as my body betrayed me, my consciousness remaining irritatingly present while my captors methodically bound my limbs. The rough rope bit into my flesh as I struggled, each movement only serving to tighten their already expertly tied knots. My attempts at resistance earned me a second blow to the head, this one finally dragging me into the mercy of unconsciousness. Dima turned in his chair, pulling back his hair to reveal a network of scars that mapped the violence of that night. The surgical precision of some contrasted sharply with the jagged chaos of others, creating a topography of trauma across his scalp. But these visible wounds, he assured me, were merely the surface of his scars. "There's more," he said quietly, "so much more that can be seen." The weight of his words hung in the air between us as he continued his narrative, each detail pulling me deeper into the horror he experienced. I found myself unconsciously holding my breath, my own heart racing in sympathy with the terror he described. His return to consciousness came with the cruel precision of water torture, a thin, steady stream of ice-cold water deliberately targeted to maximize discomfort while preventing the relief of passing out again. The world swam before his eyes, everything appearing in nauseating double vision as his head throbbed with an intensity that threatened to split his skull. Every attempt to move his extremities was met with the disturbing realization that his captors had bound him with an expertise that spoke of practice, too much practice. As his vision gradually stabilized, the nightmarish reality of his situation emerged from the shadows. 2 emaciated figures sat at a makeshift table, engaged in a casual game of cards as if they weren't T in the presence of bound police officers. The space around them, whether abandoned building or underground catacomb, he couldn't be sure, reeked of decay and unwashed bodies, the kind of stench that seeps into your clothes and stays with you for days. His partner lay nearby, similarly bound and showing signs of regaining consciousness. The darkness of their prison was broken only by the sickly yellow glow of a kerosene lamp, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls like mocking specters. When their captors noticed their returned consciousness, one approached with a grin that revealed teeth rotted by neglect or perhaps something worse. Understanding that standard police procedure would be useless here, Dima made a desperate attempt to assert authority, declaring their law enforcement status and demanding release. The response was predictable yet chilling. Laughter followed by a brutal blow to his abdomen. Even now, years later, he lifted his shirt to show me the permanent reminder of that moment, scarring so severe it made me physically recoil. Even today, he confided, I struggle to categorize what these people were. Human, yes, but twisted into something else entirely. Maybe cultists, given their ritualistic behavior, but that label feels too simple for the horror they embodied. Lying there on the damp ground, he began to understand the true depth of their situation while his mind raced through possible escape scenarios. But what came next would demonstrate just how impossible escape would be. They selected his partner first, their rage at his earlier shooting of their associate evident in their brutal handling. They forced Dima to watch what followed, ensuring he wouldn't miss a single detail of their revenge. After securing their victim to the table, one of the gaunt figures leaned in close to Dima, their breath hot and rancid against his ear as they whispered their promise. You'll die many, many times. The methodical preparation of the blowtorch suggested a routine they had performed before. The flame, when it came, was immediate and devastating. His partner's hair ignited like dry kindling, the room quickly filling with acrid smoke and the unmistakable stench of burning flesh. The screams, those screams that Dima says still wake him in the night, bounced off the concrete walls while their captors forced his eyes open, ensuring he witnessed every moment of their sadistic display. As the smoke dissipated and his partner lost consciousness, the true horror of their work became visible. The scalp had melted away, exposing the skull beneath charred flesh and coagulated blood. Despite the devastating injury, his partner's body continued to twitch, involuntary functions failing as his heart desperately tried to maintain life. The final act was almost anticlimactic, a simple slash across the throat, sending a fountain of blood to join the growing pool on the floor. In that moment, Dima's mind filled with images of his partner's life, his wife's smile, his children's laughter, the recent department barbecue where they had all seemed so invincible. These memories crashed against the reality before him with devastating force. Pausing in his recounting, Dima requested a cigarette, his hands shaking so badly I had to light it for him. The horror of his story had left me struggling to maintain my professional composure, each detail adding to the growing knot in my stomach. Brother, he continued, tears now flowing freely down his face, I need to talk about this. I am losing my grip on reality after everything I witnessed. What followed was almost too horrific to comprehend. The vivisection of the other officer, performed with bare hands, the organs thrown at Dima in some twisted display of power, the intestines draped around his neck like a grotesque necklace. When I questioned the discrepancy in the number of assailants, he had mentioned 4 but described only 2. Dima explained that the others were likely dealing with the officers trapped in the marsh, the same officers who would ultimately prove to be his salvation. By this point, his captors had stripped him and were preparing for what would have been an excruciating mutilation, their evident pleasure in the process suggesting a level of sadistic enjoyment that haunts Dima to this day. I can't even begin to imagine what they did to their other victims, he whispered, his voice breaking, especially the children. Just as hope had completely abandoned him, the sound of a door slamming and approaching footsteps signaled an unexpected turn in his nightmare. A turn that would ultimately lead to his survival. though the cost of that survival would be paid in recurring nightmares and permanent psychological scars. The tale he shared that day revealed not just the events of a single horrific night, but the profound impact such experiences have on those who serve to protect us. It was a stark reminder that some darkness runs deeper than we dare imagine, and some stories leave scars that never truly heal. They barely licked the freaks, apparently thinking their comrades had returned. It turned out to be my guys, covered in mud and slime from head to toe. The moment the freak opened the door, it happened. His skull exploded in a bloody mess, spattering me with gore. A second shot followed immediately, aimed at another freak, and seeing the horrific scene unfolding around them, someone emptied an entire magazine into him, transforming the old, filthy hotel room into a bloodbath. I sat on the chair with my pants down, having soiled myself, weeping while holding my comrade's intestines and innards in my hands. I experienced a nervous breakdown, unable to speak or even breathe properly. Shortly afterward, specialists and an ambulance arrived, but it was already pointless. They transported me to the hospital. My stay there wasn't lengthy. Now I attend regular sessions with a psychologist. But he doesn't help me. I cannot forget this, you understand? I can't stop seeing everything before my eyes, as if I am about to relive that entire nightmare again. I resigned from the service, submitted my report. The higher-ups tried to convince me to stay, of course, but no. I just can't continue like this anymore. They never caught those two, and nobody knows where they disappeared to. The area was thoroughly combed. Perhaps they fled to another city or are hiding somewhere in the woods. And now for years, children will continue disappearing and being transformed into broken dolls stuffed with straw. So these devils in human form could satisfy some invented deity of theirs. You know, I often wonder what would have happened to me if the guys hadn't found that place or hadn't arrived in time. What would have become of me? We wouldn't be talking right now. It's truly terrifying, brother. And that guy, I owe him a life debt until my dying day. They told me later that they followed the screams. The cries were clearly audible in the forest. The screams of that poor soul whose head they were literally melting with a blowtorch. And what about those two? Did I inquire? That's no longer my concern. They had enough. Let someone else deal with them. He poured another shot of vodka, drank it, and began to sob quietly. Well, friends, that concludes our horror portion today. But remember, the darkness is always around, and it is waiting for its time to remind you again. If you enjoyed tickling your nerves and dive into the world of mystery and mysticism, do not forget to put a like, comment and, of course, subscribe to the channel. After all, ahead of you awaits more chilling stories that make your blood run cold in your veins. Click on the bell to not miss new videos, and remember, sometimes the worst is what is hidden in silence. See you in the next installment. Unless, of course, you afraid.